Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about working outside of the prison. How hard is it to be able to earn the right to work outside? What does ROTL stand for? So let's start with ROTL. What does it stand for? It's release on temporary license. So basically you have a temporary license to work outside of the prison and stay at home or go out for the day. Cool. So this is a real tough one to work towards. I mean, not everybody's legible for it. It really depends on how long your sentence is. So if you're serving a year sentence, then you'll never really be able to do it, because you've got to have a 6 month clean record, which I'll go into in a minute, and then you've got to do working 8 weeks out the front of the prison before you can even start to go. It's a long process, and it also depends on what prison you go to. So we'll start from the beginning. So in Send, where I was, as you're probably all aware, I was working outside before COVID hit and it all got taken away. So it was 2 years before my release that I was legible for it. I know they was changing that a lot. Some prisoners, it's actually 3 years. It really depends. If you're serving a smaller sentence, I think it could be a bit of a less time. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm just speaking from my experience. So mine was 2 years before release. To earn that, I had to sit aboard with my OMU worker, which is like an inside probation officer, but works in the prison, not the outside. They keep track of all your. They're just there the whole time. It's a bit like being on license. You have to see probation till your license is over. Well, for this, you have to see your OMU worker inside the prison until you're released from prison. So you have to sit aboard with them, like your governor, the OMU governor, because there's different governors for different areas of the prison, and then you've got the top governor of the whole prison. So you've got to sit aboard, and you've got to have no misbehaviour whatsoever, so you can't really have negative IEPs, which are these little bits of paper when you get told off by an officer. You can't be in any fights, you can't get caught with drugs or with a phone or anything like that. You can't, you've got to really be good behaved, and this is why I say it's the whole yes sir, no sir thing. You've got to do that, and it's really tough. So you sit this board and they go through your security intel. So this can be intel from officers, it can be intel from prisoners, because prisoners like to make stuff up about you, and also prisoners like to grass on other prisoners that are actually doing bad stuff. So you sit this board, that's long enough, then you have to wait. And that, I think I waited 10 weeks to hear back whether I was allowed. So you've got that whole gap. I know some girls, they're waiting anything from 4 weeks to like 4 months. So that then gets authorised, but then you're waiting for them to do all the paperwork to agree your license conditions and all this other stuff. So this can take more weeks after that. It's such a long process. So once that's done, then I had to work outside the front of the prison. So as you come out of the gates, you go down the road, literally like a 30-second walk, and there was a little cafe that was just for the prison officers, that they come out on their lunch, and we would have to cook them dinner or cook them lunch. You couldn't make a lot. It's more like paninis and stuff like that. We could sometimes make up curries or a little mini roast and stuff. Yeah, and I had to do that for 8 weeks then before I was allowed to go out for the day. So after 8 weeks, I was then allowed to go out for the day. So you get this like little book. I've actually got a picture of it somewhere, and you have to carry this around. It's what's called your license, and you have to carry it around with you at all times. You can't, if you get stopped on the outside when you're on your day out, let's say the police stop you, you have to show that, otherwise you're classed as an escaped prisoner if they radio you through and stuff like, so all that madness. So that's that kind of pressure just from that. So then anyway, I was, my first day release, I was allowed out from, I think it was 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. So you have to be back on time, otherwise that's breach your license. Your whole rules will just get stopped, unless obviously your train is delayed, there's a reason for it, and obviously you can call the prison can look and see if there's traffic, as to why you could be stuck, like be coming back late, or if their trains have been delayed, they can obviously check and see that you're telling the truth. If you're telling the truth, then that's a different story. They won't necessarily stop your license. Sorry, there's so much to say and I'm just trying to think without forgetting it all. So yeah, so I got my first day release. I mean, that was awesome. It was really weird. I remember my best friend picking me up when I got out of the car, and I was like, I'm a prisoner. Like, I'm a prisoner and I'm going back to prison. Like, I've come out of prison for the day and I'm going back. Like, who does that though? My head was just blown. I can remember not get, like, I just couldn't get my head around it. It was just crazy. The day absolutely flew. I wanted to be back half hour earlier than I had to be. You know, you have all that pressure, your clock watching, and you know, and you just, the second you walk through the gate, it was like you was never outside. It just feels like it didn't happen. It's really, really surreal. So once, you know, that happens, I'm still working outside Monday to Friday, which is great. I was going out about sort of, I think it was after roll checks, was going out about 9ish, coming back in whenever we really wanted to finish up, but we wasn't allowed to come in past 3:30. But normally we'd go back in about 2 o'clock. We'd be bored after a while just sitting in there because the officers stopped coming out. You've washed up, there's not really a lot else to do. So you earn that, you build your trust, and then after doing another like so once every 2 weeks I was allowed out on a day release. After you do that for a couple of months, I can't remember exactly how long it was, I then got to stay at home every 28 days. At first it was for 2 nights, 3 days to build the trust up, and then it was 3 nights, and then the following month it was 4 nights. It never went over 4 nights and 5 days. That was the maximum that I was allowed. It's different if you have children, so we'll go into that one in a minute. So basically, yeah, so I got to stay at home, so that was great. My time was flying. After 12 weeks of working at and staff mess, I got the right to go and work in to get a job somewhere else. Basically, I got a job in a hotel. And can I just say, if anybody stays in a hotel, can we appreciate the staff a little bit more of how much mess you leave? Because I had to graft my ass off. It was hard work. It was hard work, and the time they're pressured in to do so many rooms is a lot. So anyway, yeah, it made me a bit more respectful for when I stay in hotels, because the amount of cleaning you got to do, and some of the states of the rooms I saw were unreal. But anyway, going off track. So so then I got a job. I got to work in this hotel. The prison take 40% of your wages, which some people moaned about. For me, I was buzzing. I think, do you know what? I'd be happy if they took 50-60%. The fact that I get to go outside, once I was working in the hotels, I allowed my mobile phone. But obviously, before you go back into the prison, it had to go in a locker. It couldn't enter into the prison. You know, and it was like you have all these privileges, and I get it. Some people, you know, they got children and stuff like that, but still, if you never had your ROTLs, you wouldn't be earning money. So that's just my opinion. You know, everyone's is different, and I do understand that and respect everyone's opinion, but for me, I was grateful. So it didn't last very long though, because I was having that, and obviously lockdown happened, so that all got taken away. But for me, then that's my scenario. Then my friend, Ron, who never gets back to me, yeah, if you're watching this, she got more of a privilege. So because she had children, so her process was exactly the same as me. It was 2 years before release. She'd done the whole staff mess. She come to work in the hotel with me, but because she had children, she got a separate ROTTL on top of that. So she would go home once a week instead of once a fortnight, and she would get to stay at home on a separate occasion. I think it was 2 or 3 nights. I can't remember exactly how many nights it was, but it was a maximum of 3. And that was called a child ROTTL. So she got that totally separate on top of that. So that was even more of a luxury, to go out and do that. So people think, oh, you know, these prisoners, you know, how do they get to do that? You know, what's the right, and etc etc. But you'll always find that any prisoner that went out and done these rules weren't really bad people. I know some people would judge on that, you know, we broke the law, blah blah blah, but you wouldn't see any girls that were fighting or selling drugs or anything like that in prison going out and doing this sort of stuff, because they just couldn't. And every 6 months you have to sit a board. So you could be doing your ROTLs for the 2 years, but every 6 months you have to sit a board, and then they'll tell you what intel's put on you. And if there's fresh intel, or there's anything to say that you've been, you've had a fight or anything like that, your ROTLs just get stopped immediately. Any misbehavior, any breaking the rules, your ROTLs are just stopped immediately. It's not, oh, I can do what I want and I can carry on working outside. It doesn't work like that at all. So you really have to be on extra behavior. You have to shut yourself off from everybody else, because at this point now, girls will get jealous. They'll make stuff up about you, which the officers are aware of. They're not stupid. They know what sort of people are bringing in the intel. They know that they're the ones that are jealous and they're hating and stuff like that. And there does have to be factual evidence. They can't just go, oh, her over there in on that wing said that you've got a phone and right, we're going to stop your ROTLs. They've got to have more evidence than that. But if there's so much intel, then it gets to the point where they have to start questioning it and looking into it. But girls will make your life hell. Even officers, they'll test you a little bit more because they know that you've got this privilege. And some officers are anti it. Some of the officers in there are like, no, you shouldn't be laughing, you shouldn't be joking around, you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't be allowed out later because you're on a privilege wing. There's a lot of stuff that officers literally just hate on you for. So some of them don't agree with it. They'll openly say, no, I don't agree with being able to work outside. I don't think you should. So you've got to really, really tread on eggshells at this point. And you just got to keep telling yourself and remind yourself what's more important. Getting out, going home, getting to see my family, or snapping back at this officer or some other prisoner that's trying to test you or whatever, trying to get you to fight with them. So then it goes against you and your ROTLs can be stopped. So you got, it's ongoing. Like I said, every 6 months. So you have to go and sit the board again. You have to sit with the governor, your OMU, go through your intel, and then they will say whether yes, we're going to carry on your ROTLs, or no, we're going to stop them. I've seen some madness on ROTLs. I've seen some crazy behaviour. Some of the girls were messing around, and it got to the point where, I'm not going to go into it too much, that we was all getting breathalyzed when we come back in. So we was randomly getting stopped as we was coming in, and what you get stopped by the police. We had to do breathalyzer tests. A couple of times certain girls got tested positive for having alcohol in their system, so their ROTLs got stopped. They also got kicked off of the privilege wing. They then had to go back up to main block, so they had to do another 8 weeks up there, behave, get to move back down, then sit their ROTL board again, make sure there was no intel, and they would be given another chance. That's one thing, the prisons, I can't really fault. They do give you second chances. They do let you try and earn it back and learn from your mistakes. So it's just making me laugh. Sorry, just thinking about some of the things. That some of the girls got away with. But and then so there's always that. Also, there's that spot check that the prison can do. So it really depends on what prison that you're in. So in Send, it really depends if they've got the staff. So for example, I had to be in at 11 o'clock when I was sleeping out for the night. I could only stay at my mum's house. I couldn't stay anywhere else. My license basically said that I had to be in at 11 p.m. Now, if an officer wanted to turn up at 12 a.m., 1 a.m., 3 a.m., they could and do a check that I was there. So you have to be really, really mindful with stuff like the standard jails, not the open ones. They got their short staff, so it's really tough for them to do that, but you could never take that risk because they always could. So now if you go to an open prison like East Sutton Park now, because it's open and you can just walk out freely, like if I had enough one day, I could just walk down the drive out of the prison, and there's no gates, there's nothing surrounding me, and I could never go back. Obviously that's an extra charge. That's a different charge you can get. So they say up to 10 years added to your sentence for doing that. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone having that amount of time, but it's possible. They don't. So basically it's different. Their staffing are to staff you, so they will do spot checks. You have to say where you are, like every hour, where you're going to be, if you're going shopping, what shops you're going to be in, what time you're going to be in town. And you have to fill out all these forms, because I know girls that have been in there, so it's really, really tough in there. And like I said, officers do spot checks all the time, so it's not like you can go and break the rules. It's not that simple there. So they really, really do check on you. And if you're in, like, say for example, I was in Sens, they wanted to transfer me out to East Sutton Park, but I managed to get a hold because I found out my mum was terminally ill. So they just said, with it being so far away, it wasn't that, they just put a hold on me and let me stay there, which I was really lucky, because at that point I could have then, if you get transferred whilst you're doing your ROTLs, you then got to go there and do another 8-week lay down. So you have to start the whole process again. So it's really long. So if you want to do your open, if I was you, I would just go straight to an open prison, because they can ship you out whenever they want. They don't have to hold you there. So my advice to you is, yeah, just go, get out, start afresh, start there, because then no one will move you from an open prison unless you get caught doing something you shouldn't. Then you're going to get your ROTLs taken away from you anyway. You'll get kicked out of there and job done. They do drug test you. They do random drug tests to make sure that you're obviously not using. I know in open prison they do it a lot more than what they did in Send, like the closed prisons. And I think that's really about it. It's not easy to get it. It's tough. It's tough to get it. It's tough to keep it. It just depends on what mindset you are, what kind of person, what's more important. Would you rather be fighting? Would you rather be selling drugs? Would you rather be taking drugs? Or would you rather just graft your ass off, get your head down, get out, see your family, spend time with your family? The, the crimes I've seen, all different crimes, of people do it. So there's wrong people that are out doing their ROTLs. There's someone that had been in there for 10 plus years. She was just starting her ROTLs as I left. Then my other friend, she's done nearly 8 years. She's just doing her ROTLs now. So again, that depends on how long you've got. I think they've changed it all a bit, so it could be, I don't know the exact, but like I said, for me it was 2 years before my release. So yeah, I think that covers everything roughly on ROTLs. Before I go, again, I just want to say thank you to all the new subscribers and the old ones for staying loyal. Literally all the love I've had, it's just been immense. I'm really, really grateful, guys. So thank you. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. I'll be back soon.